Good morning to everybody that's joined us so far. My name is Shali Katana, and I'm the Director of Member Experience and Programs here at MSBA. We are hosting this morning a coffee talk for the Family and Juvenile Law section of the MSBA, and I know there's going to be many more people joining, so please feel free to hop on. If you have questions during the chat, you can type those in the upper right-hand corner, and Angela has shared with everyone here a link, if you're looking through Chrome, that will allow you to see everything in a very Hollywood Squares sort of view. You can see many more faces on the chat, so we recommend that you download that extension. You can hop off and hop back in to the conversation. So I do have a few slides just to start off to give you an update on what the MSBA has been doing. And then after that, we'll turn it over to our section chair and we'll open it up to discussion. So at the MSBA, we have been busy since the COVID crisis began, and even before that, involved in a lot of advocacy and outreach. And we've been really thankful at the many members and just the entire profession that's joined us through our webinars, our town halls, virtual section meetings. And we have been working closely with many Maryland leaders and entities such as the governor's office, the judiciary, the federal judiciary, Office of Legal Counsel, and the governor's office to share your concerns and questions, to obtain clarifications for existing orders, to suggest and offer recommendations and language for any upcoming orders or directives. And I'll turn over now to Richard Montgomery to give us an update about some of that work. Thank you, Richard.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Montgomery. I serve as MSBA Legislative Director. Shelley mentioned a couple of executive orders. There were two that the MSBA was heavily involved with the development of. The first dealt with remote notarization. Basically, what was going on with that is there was an act that passed in the 2019 General Assembly session that authorized remote notarization. The unfortunate thing was that it has an October 1st, 2020 effective date. So given the current state of the pandemic and stay-at-home orders and social distancing and all that sort of thing, there was a need to try to have that effective date moved up. And since it couldn't be done legislatively, the governor issued an executive order that basically suspended the prohibition of doing that, or it had the effect of moving up the effective date for the date of the executive order, which I believe was March 30th. Remote witnessing was a second executive order that dealt principally with estate planning documents and some other health planning documents. That had a slightly different history in that there had been an express statutory prohibition against that. The governor's executive order suspends that prohibition, and I understand from the Estates and Trust section that they have developed emergency legislation to sustain that procedure once the emergency is lifted. Now that is scheduled to be introduced if there is still a special session, which we're hoping that there will be before the end of the year, but it's pretty unclear at this point. We've also worked with the Governor's Office of Legal Counsel on interpretive guidance to to executive orders that have been issued, because executive orders are very, very broad. And if you just read them, what it knows for that. They provided interpretive guidance that sort of fills in the cracks, and we fielded a fair number of questions, which most of which they've been able to answer, others not so much, because they required conjecture. In any case, there are other things going on in Annapolis. Of course, Shelley had mentioned the judiciary, and the judiciary has been very cooperative with the bar. There is a COVID-19 work group within Maryland General Assembly, which meets weekly, and the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee is holding a briefing. Now, this is going to deal principally with criminal law What they're trying to get a sense of is what the criminal justice system, or what the justice system in general, is going to look like when the courts reopen. So their first briefing, which will deal principally with criminal law, is going to be on May 7th. And my sense is that there will be others once they get a sense of what the courts anticipate going forward. And that's about where we are right now.
Thank you, Richard. We've also been conducting weekly calls with several of the largest Maryland law firms to talk about strategies for how to cope with COVID and move forward. And that's been really helpful in sharing ideas and then sharing some of that information with our members. We've increased our communications to all of you. As you may have seen, lots of emails, lots of good content coming your way. And we do have an e-weekly. We have a learning at home email that's going out now to allow you to take part in all of our offerings 24/7. The upcoming bar journal, which we'll be sending out in a few weeks, will be digital this time around, given where we are right now. And we've also made a decision to offer all of our on-demand CLE content free of charge to the entire profession through June 30th. And I will have Andrea Terry discuss that in a little more detail shortly. We also launched a COVID-19 website on March 13th when the emergency began, and we've been updating that with several resources, both for your practice and also what's been going on in the courts, what's been going on in Maryland and at the national levels. And Andrea, I'll turn it over to you now if you could give us an update with where we are on the webinars and your work with the sections.
Sure. Thanks, Shally. Good morning, everyone. I really want to thank the Family Law section for the work that they put into yesterday's webinar. We had almost 400 people on the line, and we've had a few hundred views of the video since it was completed, since the live session was completed yesterday. Craig Borchers pulled together a panel of attorneys, including Becky Fleming and Peter Markuski and Brian Perlstein, and they surveyed the state and talked to the administration in all the circuits they could reach, and really provided a pretty comprehensive overview of how custody and visitation issues are being handled during the pandemic, kind of jurisdiction by jurisdiction. And there was a lot of conversation. It was a nice forum for family law practitioners to be able to pose questions and kind of share ideas amongst themselves. So I really appreciate the family law section stepping up and providing that kind of service, because everybody is hungry for information and information that's as current as possible. So we've done a few dozen of these webinars. Many of the sections have been identifying, really almost immediately started identifying how this is, working from home and trying to serve your clients remotely is going to impact your practice, and immediately started assembling teams to present the information as in as useful a format as possible, as quickly as possible. We've got another one tomorrow. Richard mentioned the electronic execution of documents. We've got Estates and Trust doing a webinar on that tomorrow. And we just really provide all the support that we can. We have the tech platforms in place. We have great staff that's supporting these webinars. So really, we're just relying on the sections for content, and we do all the marketing and logistical and technical support. So if you have identified some topics that you think need to be addressed and aren't being addressed, please reach out, send me an email. That would be great. And Shally mentioned that we have opened up the on-demand catalog for free through the end of June, and I encourage everybody to take advantage of that. We've sent out, the coupon code is free CLE MSBA, and we've sent that out in our e-weeklies, out to all the listservs, and most of the section newsletters that have gone out since we started this offer. It's good through the end of June, and we hope everybody will take advantage of it. So far, we rolled it out last week, and 2,800 lawyers have taken advantage of using that coupon code. So I would really encourage you to do that and to reach out to us if you have ideas for things that haven't been addressed yet.
Thanks, Andrea. We also continue to put forth publications, and coming up this spring, we have a title on ESI, judgment avoidance, and criminal pattern jury instructions. And all of this is available online on our CLE catalog, both in print and digitally. So we encourage you to check that out. I'll turn over now to Lisa Kaplan, who's director of our Lawyer Assistance Program, to give us an update.
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. We have a lot of information on the COVID health and wellness page. It's a really important time to be taking care of yourselves, and your practices will go a lot better if you're able to take care of yourself and focus a little bit on self-care. So there's a lot of information as far as home workouts, yoga videos, the tip of the day. I have a support group that I'm doing on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock. It's going to run through May. And it's been small, but it's been a really great group. We've talked about motivation. We're going to talk about resilience the next week. And it's a really great group. So please check out the Health and Wellness page. Also, the Lawyer Assistance Program is always available to assist. It can help with any kind of problems. It is not just a substance abuse program. It's available to all lawyers in Maryland. We have a statewide network of counselors that are available. So once we're able to move about a little bit, you can meet with somebody right in your area. If you're ever concerned about anyone, about their mental health or anything that's going on with them, you can give me a call. It's completely anonymous. We can talk about what's going on, and we can make sure I can make sure that that person is safe, and you will not get them in trouble at all. It does not have anything to do with attorney grievance, but it may actually save a life. So if you're ever concerned, please call. And we also offer financial assistance for mental health and substance abuse. So if anybody is in counseling and struggling paying for that counseling, we've helped with weekly counseling. We help with getting somebody into inpatient treatment. So that is a huge resource, and it's available. So if you have any questions, just please give me a call. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa. As Richard had mentioned, these are some of our advocacy efforts that we've continued to reach out to these entities throughout the crisis. And as always, if you have any questions, any concerns, please feel free to reach out to us as we continue to talk to them. Our Access to Justice partner has also been hard at work. They have created their own dedicated COVID-19 website that's there as a resource to civil legal aid organizations that are providing services during this crisis, and also for the public to have one-pagers and guides about where they can go for resources and how they can access legal assistance remotely. And they've also focused their efforts now on a public information campaign, securing funding as the crisis continues, and working with civil aid organizations and our MSBA members to create a volunteer group of lawyers who will be able to assist with disaster legal services. And one other area that I would like to mention is our annual meeting that many of you have seen. We did have to make a decision to cancel this June's event. We took time to make that decision. We were looking at what other bars were doing. We were looking at what was coming out of the governor's office and from health officials. But with the courts being closed through early June and our event following soon after, it just didn't make sense. But I do want to let everyone know that we are planning a fall event that we are calling Legal Excellence Week. That will be a great event to look forward to, incorporating a lot of our fall programming into 1 week. And we'll also have keynote speakers and social events to fill in that week. And that's when we'll plan to have our solo and small summit, some of our learning tracks, as well as our conference of bar presidents. So please, be on the lookout for that. There's plenty of good programming coming your way virtually until then. And if you have any questions, we're here to answer. I'll turn now to Angela Monroe. If you can just give us an update on the section and what you've been working on, Angela. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelly. Good morning, everybody. As Andrea has mentioned, the section hosted that wonderful webinar yesterday. The section has also been really busy working on their program and awards for the annual meeting. I know we have Chris Van Roden, who is the section chair, so I'm going to let him give any updates with that, with the awards or anything like that.
Hi, good morning. Glad everybody could be here. And from a global standpoint, from a annual meeting standpoint, unfortunately, as Shelley said, the MSBA had to cancel the annual meeting, and with it, our famous, infamous, notorious family law meeting. Full of fun, but also lots of information. It's hard still to wrap my head around the fact that after how many years we're not going to have an annual meeting, we're not going to have a family law meeting. But we had a lot of work this year on legislation before the legislature broke early. We had a lot of work on family law legislation in terms of modifications to the grounds for divorce, modifications to child support guidelines, lots of big ticket legislation. So worked very, very hard. Our Beverly A. Groner Award is not a secret anymore. The award is going to be presented, and we will work on a date, a time, and location sometime in the fall to Tom Reese, who a very, very much deserved recipient of that award. We're very happy to have had his guidance and leadership over the years, and we're happy to present him with that award, and we will be doing so later on. Becky Fleming, who was one of the panelists yesterday, is the incoming chair of the Family and Juvenile Law section, and as such was tasked with planning and putting together the program for the annual meeting, and had a number of good speakers, good program planned, as well as our business meeting, which obviously will not take place, and we will transition otherwise without the annual meeting. One of the things that from a practical standpoint that I see with all of this going on is that all of a sudden things have been thrown into turmoil. I haven't heard the term local rules more often than in the last 30, 45 days, because we have an order from or a series of orders from Judge Barbera, and yet we have each jurisdiction doing something just a little bit different, based upon their availability, based upon their technology, based upon just their ability to work around, and that has thrown monkey wrenches into our practices, because we want to know what we should and shouldn't do, what's going to be heard, what's not going to be heard, et cetera. So that and some other things I'd like to hear from people. The questions that you have, suggestions that I have. I know suggestions from our family law leadership in terms of how to find that information out. One of the things I'll plug, and I cannot stress this enough, is the MSBA. And I know from the people that are on this, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but the Maryland State Bar has successfully, I believe, and consistently coordinated a comprehensive list of all of the orders out of the Court of Appeals, out of Judge Barbera, as well as the local letters and orders from the various jurisdictions that have chosen to weigh in, from the 21 jurisdictions that are MDEC jurisdictions and the 3 jurisdictions who aren't. We're getting letters and communications from the various administrative judges on how they want things filed or not filed, or how they want things done. The MSBA has that all, and I think it was up on one of Shelley's earlier posts on the screen, but it's there on the MSBA website. So I really stress, go to the MSBA website and look for the orders, and ask people. Most importantly, ask people in the specific jurisdiction. Call practitioners in that jurisdiction if you're not local to that jurisdiction. and call the clerk's office. Most of the clerks are there, especially in the MDEC counties. The clerks are there, and it's important. They may be able to say, what their judges are hearing, what judges are in, what they're not hearing. Use them as a resource. When MDEC started, we didn't get to see the clerks as much, and now we don't get to see them at all. So, from my perspective and my experience, they're welcoming calls as well. So use that as a resource as well. Angela?
Thank you, Chris.
So Angela, did you have other updates?
I didn't know.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you, Chris, for your leadership and for being so thoughtful in ways at which we can, still get the information. And as he said, we have a lot of information on our website. We're continually updating that. And now as we're seeing a lot of the local jurisdictions and the local administrative judges and clerks making more of a public effort to, get feedback, get information from us. I think that's a lot of what's happening now in early May as they think about how to continue remote hearings, what the reopening will look like, and what priorities look like. So it really is a time for us to be vocal, for us to be involved. I see there's a question here. What efforts are being made to transfer the 3 non-MDEC counties to MDEC? I can speak briefly to that, and then Chris, maybe you could have some thoughts. I don't know how brief we could be on this issue, but what I will say, and what Chris has mentioned, is that the non-MDEC counties have now, some of them started virtual filings or have requested emailed filings in Baltimore City as well. I think sort of as a stopgap and as a way to deal with the real health concerns of people that are filing, but it's by no means, ready to go. And they were not in a place, I think, to put that forward during this time. But they are making efforts, and we're seeing that in the orders and directives that are coming out. Montgomery County, as they mentioned in the webinar yesterday, and as we saw from Judge Greenberg, have started expanding the types of virtual filings that can come in. Chris, did you have any other comments on that?
Yeah, I did. This is one of those crazy things where I don't know where I heard it, but at least one of the MDEC jurisdictions, non-MDEC jurisdictions, either Montgomery or Prince George's County, I vaguely heard, and maybe somebody there, either Shelley, yourself, or Angela, or somebody can confirm that they actually, before this all hit, had pushed off MDEC ramp up for one of the counties, and it may have been Montgomery, it may have been Prince George's. This pandemic has not helped the efforts, the ramping up of the 3 remaining non-MDEC jurisdictions. It really hasn't. And we've got jurisdictions that I know Baltimore City, we got the letter a week or so ago, or a couple of weeks ago. Basically, they don't have the clerks in the clerk's offices to open the mail because they're afraid of what's on the mail. And so, there are things that aren't being docketed. There are things that aren't being received, simply aren't being opened because they don't have the staff to administer. So that I don't think there's any quickening of the ramp up to MDEC. And if anything, from what I've heard, it's actually kind of slowed things down for those 3 remaining jurisdictions. And again, the sizes of those jurisdictions is what's causing the problem as well. So
I just want to step in really quickly. Having been a part of yesterday's talk, I do know that the exec council, somebody who was on the line yesterday, was able to pull together the notes of each jurisdiction and what it is that they're doing. We're waiting on kind of confirming that that's actually the case in each county and in each sector to make sure that they're up to date. Once they are up to date, I'm going to be getting in touch with Angela to upload that onto the Family Law Section Council website. And obviously, it's as we're getting the information. So if people have different information, please reach out to us and tell us if you've got updates or news that may not be listed so that we can update it for everybody. But that's something that we're going to be doing so that way the information that we have is disseminated as effectively as possible as far as what each county is doing and what it is that, maybe resources that people can use for contacting their local bar associations to figure out what each county is doing specifically.
Thank you. There's a question, and I think that that'll be a wonderful ongoing resource, and we'll support you however to make sure that it's updated and that everyone will be able to access it.
Shelley?
Yep.
If I may, to follow up on what Eleni said, the most important thing that I think Eleni said was that these things will be changing, moment by moment, as new processes and procedures are put into place. It's important for the members. It's important for the practitioners in those jurisdictions when something changes to let us know, to let Eleni know, but to let us know so that the website can be updated for everybody, so that we're not, maintaining just the closed county rule. Thank you.
We have a question here, Chris. Is there any push to allow certain uncontested matters to continue remotely even after reopening for safety reasons? For example, CJIS cases, divorce, conference, etc.
Haven't heard of any, but quite frankly, my feeling is that all of us going way more electronic than we had in the past will have a rippling effect and a long-lasting effect on the operation of the courts. There's no reason that the courts couldn't, continue remote, uncontested divorces, conferences, scheduling conferences, et cetera, rather than requiring, attorneys and parties to be present in a jurisdiction that may not be local to the attorney or to the party. Certainly, something to be pursued. We've got to get through this first, but certainly, I think the judges right now are looking at what we're doing now. I know our court is looking at. We had a Zoom meeting with probably 70 people last week between our administrative judge for district and circuit court, Judges Hazlett and Eves in Harford County, regarding what we're doing about emergencies, what we're doing about protective and peace orders, what we're doing about conferences and everything else, ramping back up, anticipating a June 8 restart. So that's what they're focused on now, not down the road a piece. Certainly great idea, and I see no reason why it can't continue. I see no reason, why they shouldn't continue.
And if I could add, we had a discussion with Judge Bradar from the federal bench in Maryland, and we'll be sharing more from our discussion with him in the upcoming Bar Journal. But, he's also been in touch with Judge Barbera and, people all over the country, judges all over the country, and they really are looking at the long-term effects of this. So while the immediate is the now and what happens after June 5, I think that now that these technologies are in place, it's a real discussion. And even if it does go back to in-person, court proceedings, there are a lot of procedures that are in play right now in terms of accessing the court, social distancing, cleaning, sanitizing courtrooms, that I think will be going on for much longer. And that is part of, the next phase, I think, in May, as the judiciary plans and meets with everyone. We had another question here. Who thinks the courts are really going to open June 8th, and what will that look like? I think that's the big question for everyone here, and we'd love to open it up now. I see there's 24 people on this call for anyone's thoughts on what they think of that, what the experience has been like, and what will happen after June 5th.
I'll start, and I can speak to Harford County because, again, as Chris said, we've heard from the judges. On a district court level, they have unilaterally and unequivocally said that the first week is just going to be protective orders, that is all they're going to focus on. And if you've got between June 8th through June 12th, anything other than a protective order matter, expect for it to be bumped. If it's a civil matter, if it's anything like that, they're going to prioritize based on the emergence of the matter. As far as circuit court for us goes, we're trying to continue to have matters that we can do remotely, but Judge Eve said very similarly that it's going to be, based on kind of prioritizing the emergency issues and then kind of hashing along as we can. And that's obviously going to continue to be updated because we are doing some hearings remotely. We're doing some stuff remotely. We're doing very few things in person in our courthouses. But again, it's going to be based on what's needed to be completed ASAP, as opposed to, okay, you've got a trial coming up, or you've got this coming up, or a civil issue coming up, that's likely going to get bumped unless it's for an emergency issue. So that's, and I've heard similarly through Cecil County and my dealings there. Again, they're different jurisdictions, so I can't speak to the immediate updates, but they're doing similarly up there as well.
And I think a big piece of it is just being adaptable, being ready for what's coming our way. I think to the extent that they have been able, the judiciary and the local judges have tried to give us as much advance notice as they can. Certainly to prepare ourselves, but really to prepare a client who may not have been expecting to go back to court. So I think those are all pieces to think about as well. I see another comment here. I'm not sure I understood, from Donna McElroy. Angela, do you have any details on that?
Yeah, she actually added some more.
Okay.
She practices on the Lower Eastern Shore, and her CINA
cases
have already been rescheduled for the 3rd and 4th week in June.
Right. So it's something that we've been seeing, that courts have been proactive, I think, in pushing some things out. And to the extent that you're receiving notices, I think, as Chris and Nalini said, just let this group know so that we can maybe start to anticipate and maybe speak to the local bars and judges about what their policies might be. Any other thoughts as we talk about sort of reopening? What are some concerns or immediate issues that you all have as family law practitioners? I think that may be helpful for this group. Or maybe we have it all figured out.
No, I have a question. One of the things I struggle with is figuring out the best meeting platform for virtual meetings, because there's so many out there. And is there any input that the Bar Association might consider of maybe a standard platform or something to that nature of like which works best, and make a recommendation on what we could use? Because I think going forward, we probably will have virtual meetings. And I struggle with picking a platform because there's so many and I don't know what works best. What everybody would be most comfortable with.
Let me chime in if I may. I understand. I know MSBA has used GoToMeeting and they're using Google Meets. The courts have barred using Zoom because of the security issues that Zoom is working on. Zoom is a very easy platform to use, but you have to pay attention to the security things that are within the Zoom so that you don't leave things open. There's also Skype, and we were told to get, in Harford County anyway, we were told to get familiar with Skype. If you weren't, download it, make sure you have it, make sure your clients have it, so that, because that's the platform that we're going to be using. I don't know about other jurisdictions, and I'll send it back to the bar.
And I want to thank you. That's helpful, because I know if that's going to be like a standard in Howard County, then it's worth my effort to invest into the little bit of money I would have to spend to be in Skype. But I'll stop, and thank you.
I've spoken to IT in Montgomery County, and they use a platform that I'd never heard of before called Blue Jeans. And I was told it's very similar to Zoom. I haven't downloaded it yet. But because they can't use Zoom, they actually are trusting the security of Blue Jeans.
That's Microsoft, I believe.
So, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
This is Lori Ruth. On the call yesterday, if you listened to the presentations of every county and what they were doing, I heard platforms that I had never heard of before. Like one of them is using Polycom. I hadn't heard of that one. Whoever reported on Montgomery County didn't talk about Blue Jean. But for those of us who have attorneys who practice in multiple jurisdictions, it's a huge challenge for them to not only teach themselves, but then teach their clients all these new and different platforms. And my hope would be that they would just go back to Zoom, for God's sake, because it is the easiest and most accessible. Yep. But so I have heard from inside sources that the judiciary is going to move from Skype next month. So and Skype for Business is awful. So I won't be sad if they leave it and go somewhere else. But, even though they're supposed to be uniformly doing something, they're all picking their own platforms anyway. And it's one of these things that, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, I'm 59 goddamn years old and I don't want to learn 15 platforms. Like, what are they? It's a full-time job.
I don't know if you're on the phone, but you're getting a lot of claps that I can see visually.
We're with you. We're with you. Can we get the standard across the board? I was on Polycom yesterday with my doctor. It was a disaster.
Right. So, and why is it that, I don't know, Zoom has done a really good job of upping their security, and they have constant updates. And I wish somebody in the executive branch of the judiciary would take a revisit to Zoom, but whatever. The other thing is, not only are we interfacing with the courts, we're interfacing with our clients. And for me in legal services, our clients are low income. And so sometimes all they have is a phone. And so the court, I don't know whether they understand that, if they pick Polycom or WebEx or whatever, it also has to have a good interface with cell phones for the clients who need to be able to access it. And I'm not sure anybody in the court system has really looked at it from that perspective so much. They're looking at it from their one connection from them to lawyers, but we then have to transfer it downstream to our clients. And you can tell I'm a little frustrated.
And Laurie, the other problem that I see is that we've got to convince our clients it's okay to download this app.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then tell them how to do it and blindly walk them through it, because they're not there. We're not there with them.
Right.
Pick a platform.
And I'm no tech expert. Jesus Christ, I could barely get on this call, I mean, it's just amazing to me, the things that we are all experiencing as a nation and a world that we never would have dreamed of. I did not go to law school to become a tech expert. I mean, that's
why you went to law school, right?
It's just exactly. I mean, it's just so, it's, I don't know. It's very challenging. So
each platform comes with a cost, because you might have to pay a certain fee to get into these platforms. I looked at the Doc Verify, and it's a crazy amount of money you have to pay, but not everybody's going to use it. So I don't want to have to buy 15 platforms. I'd be broke. by the end of the month.
One of the things that I've started to use, and to Lori's point, I have, for talking to my clients, I've given them the option of either doing a Zoom meeting or a telephone, like talk on the telephone, and that it's one or the other, and they can kind of pick and choose, and I'll give them, an hour block of time. But for Zoom, we have a commercial account and I schedule the meeting and give them the information. I also, though, have found that meeting as a BIA, and I have like 5 or 6 active BIA cases right now, at least off the top of my head. And I've been able to meet with my kid clients by Zoom, which if you've, like anybody who knows kids knows that, on the telephone, they're not going to hold attention for more than 5 to 10 minutes. I've been able to have, conversations with my kid clients, catch up with them, find out what's going on with them, and continue moving forward on my cases. And it's because of that, the face-to-face interaction. And the nice thing I will say, I get no kickbacks on it, I should, for Zoom, is that, it is a free, it's free for them.
Right.
I've had, it's set up on laptops, it's set up on a cell phone, I've had it where I'm talking to them on different platforms, but my kid clients are far more comfortable with talking to me that way. And it speaks volumes, because they'd rather have the face-to-face interaction. And I'm carrying that on with all of my clients, that they have that opportunity for a free face-to-face interaction. Well, free app. The face-to-face interaction is not free, but, that they can have that interaction. So I think that even though the judiciary might be all over the place, jurisdiction to jurisdiction and throughout the state, as far as what is barred, what's allowed, what's everything like that, if we as attorneys in our communications with our clients keep it to, one platform, where that's how we're communicating with them, it, at least for the clients, keeps things a little bit easier.
Right, but so we do protective orders. These are some of the few cases that are still happening. And so each jurisdiction is doing it a different way. It's fine for us to uniformly use Zoom with our clients. And the ethics professor at UB has said, don't worry about the attorney-client privilege problems if somehow Zoom is not secure. He said our ethical obligation is to do the best we can. And so we have decided internally that Zoom is satisfactory to protect attorney-client privilege, as long as the client says yes. If they'd rather just do it by phone, we do that. But that still doesn't, so if I do Zoom, I prep the client, I do my intake, whatever, and then the day before the hearing, the court sends out, okay, we're going to do this by this platform. Then all of a sudden, the day before the hearing, there you are being the tech expert, getting your client ready for hearing on another platform. And it just adds a layer to this that is really complicated. And I feel for my staff attorneys, who are the ones who are quote unquote going to court, and in instances, they are actually attending court right now still, but they're the ones who end up having to be more a tax expert than me. So it's a really complicating factor that I'm not sure the judiciary has paid that much attention to. And look, every day I have to remind myself, everybody is just doing the best they can. Well, so I get that.
Laurie, what about, and maybe I pose this to Richard Montgomery, is there a reason, ask, the appellate court, is there a reason why there is not a standard platform that would be?
Well, they tried Skype for Business, and I think that some of the courts didn't have the ability to even do that. And that's why they've ended up picking other platforms. But I couldn't say for sure in every instance that, so district court's a unified court. So when Eleni says this is what district court is going to do in Harford County, that's coming from Morrissey. They are telling the district court what they're going to do. So yes, you can pretty much guarantee that first and they think now second week of court, when it does reopen, is going to be all DV, because they've got hundreds of cases backed up right now.
Yep.
And when it was going to be April 4th, they were like, oh, we'll kick them out in 3 days. When it was going to be May 4th, they said, oh, well, we might need the whole week. But now there's we're talking about through June 5th, it's going to take more than 1 week for them to probably hear all those DV cases. But those decisions are made uniformly by Morrissey in conjunction with his admin judges in every county. Circuit court, it's like herding cats. Yeah. So they, you know, they can listen, they can abide by Judge Barbera's edicts to an extent, but they really aren't. She, you know, in some ways, she really isn't the boss of them in that way. It's not a unified court. So I don't know, you know, and like I said, I do appreciate that everybody is just doing the best they can. And these are unusual times for every single person on the planet. So, I mean, those things you used to say to your kids, like everybody in the world feels this way, that was not true before, is now true. So I just, you know, and the other thing I'll say as one critique of the call yesterday, there was one sentence about domestic violence cases in the entire presentation. And I find that regrettable because those are the cases that are being heard right now. And they have really a lot of problems enforcing their own policies about when a case is going to move from an interim protective order with the commissioner to a temporary in district court right now. And it's different in every county, and they're all handling it differently. So the family law practitioners really, really need to be on top of, whether you're representing a petitioner or a respondent, really need to be on top of how their court is handling these protective order cases. And I think I heard Becky Fleming say, yeah, I think they're being heard. And that was all that was said yesterday in 90 minutes.
Well, and I will tell you, Laurie, I will tell you my personal experience. I have one, and the temporary was heard last week in open court, in district court in Harford County. And lots of, you know, social distance, you know, safety measures in place. But one of the takeaways maybe from today is, regardless of whether you're petitioner or respondent's counsel, get your entry of appearance in so that the clerk's office can contact and schedule, and so that you can find out, is it going to be virtual? Is it going to be in court?
Right. And they seem to be doing them by teleconference. And we had one this week that they were ready to go on the merits on teleconference. And we got a consent, so thankfully they didn't have to do that. But there are tremendous challenges with a merits trial on teleconference when you've got evidence. We had 20 pieces of evidence, and you were supposed to email them to the court right before trial started, and then the other side would have that. And sometimes, you know, you don't want to you're not going to enter it into evidence, but you just want to show it to your witness. But now all of a sudden these respondents have our evidence. It's very, very problematic the way they're trying to address these cases. And you know, so, you know, I'm on a lot of calls every week about domestic violence in particular, because it is one of the types of cases that are going forward regularly. But, you know, again, well-intentioned courts, you know, they don't verify who the people are on the teleconference. So, you know, in our case, we got a consent. It could have been from our client's brother, and the court would not have known that we were having somebody impersonate the respondent. And I mean, obviously we didn't, but if she hadn't had a lawyer, she could have done that. They didn't notify the respondent of the hearing. It was the petitioner's responsibility to call her abuser and notify him of the hearing.
What?
Yeah.
Can I add
Are we
something?
going to end up?
Oh, sorry. This is Dina Hausner from the House of Ruth. I totally want to second everything that Laurie is saying about some of the challenges in the domestic violence cases. In addition to the extent that some of the counties are trying to hold final protective order hearings by teleconference, we're concerned about the impact that will have, because credibility of the witnesses is such a huge part of the domestic violence cases, and we don't know how a judge can assess a witness's credibility when they can't see them. So that's just another sort of complicating layer. And we practice in multiple jurisdictions, as does Women's Law Center, and there is such a variation in how the courts are handling them, and even variance in how the courts say we should expect the cases to be handled and then how they actually get handled. So for example, in Prince George's County, it was our understanding that judges would be reviewing some of the interim protective orders to see if anybody needed to be called in to have a telephone temporary protective order hearing. But we've come across cases where the judges are just issuing the temporary protective orders without having a hearing, without providing notice. And, you know, oftentimes that works out well for the petitioner, but there's just a lot of variation in how these cases are being handled, and it makes it very complicated. So thanks.
Thanks, Dina, and thanks, Lori. I'd like to jump in and just say this is, you know, extremely helpful to us to have all of this feedback, and part of what we are really working on and planning to push out in May are tips and conversations about how to practice in this kind of remote environment, and with remote trials and with these variations and teleconferences versus different platforms. So please keep giving us feedback about that, even beyond this call, about what's happening. And there were several comments as well about you know, consistency and uniformity in platforms. And I just wanted to let everyone know we have asked the judiciary about that. We're taking it to them again to get some feedback. My understanding is now they are collecting what's happening in all of the different jurisdictions, and you know, hopefully we'll get some clarity about what will happen going forward in the circuit courts. And for the domestic violence cases, I think Eleni had made a comment that, you know, she'll try to do what she can to provide information on what's happening in each court, but certainly it's shifting quickly. But all of these are concerns that I think will continue through the next month. So we will try to get responses and get as much information as we can out to you and to the judges that these are real concerns for you and for your clients.
Thank you.
I have another, just to piggyback on my chat, Maya Bangudi. So the question that I had raised on the chat was, will the courts consider remote hearings for things that are simple? And that's sort of a request. Even after, at some point, the courts are going to have to reopen. There will be pressure from the governor and so forth. So I would like the courts to think about the safety of the attorneys, the participants, the safety of the court staff, and reduce the number of people that need to come in, because for some of these matters, you truly do not need to. And also along those lines, the special immigrant juvenile status hearings are 30-minute hearings. They're very rarely contested. Only G, I think, is automatically setting those now for kids who are turning 21 and aging out. So I'd like to see the courts look at pulling all SIJS matters, going through the kids who will be aging out, and automatically those for remote hearings now, without the attorneys needing to do motions and the court having to look at the paperwork and so forth.
Thank you for that comment. We'll certainly add that. And I think that to the extent that there are other categories, you know, in terms of brainstorming that and bringing that to our attention, please go ahead and send it. Many of you already have, but for those hearings that could continue remotely, absolutely. I'll just go back now to the chat. Angela, can you let me know if there's any other questions that we can discuss? One of the other things I wanted to raise, and I think Lori, you mentioned this in the chat, is instances where we heard yesterday in the webinar that courts have said, you know, counsel can be with their client or separated from their client. So the added challenge of not having the client next to you, and thinking through strategies of how to communicate with them in this remote platform. And I just wanted to inform you that's another piece that MSBA is looking at, preparing and sending information out to you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments? I think this has been a wonderful discussion, and you know, we've had a lot of answers, but a lot of questions as well, which I think is what's good that comes out of this. And you know, our goal really is not just to take the questions, but to take them and do something with them, and to get your questions answered and raised with the right entities. And as you all are continuing your practice, I think this is a great group to have as a resource and to stay updated. As I said, we're sending a lot more content and communications to you. And maybe it all doesn't apply to you, but we're hoping that we're covering all bases. And if there's anything that you would like us to promote, any information from different jurisdictions that you'd like to make sure the membership knows about, please reach out to us. Thanks. I'd like to turn now, we just have a few minutes left. MSBA has a partner in Treble, which is an online networking platform. And I sent an email last night about details for this. And I will turn it over to them briefly to give us an update about their tool and to walk us through some steps. So I think we have David Gertler here.
David. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? All good?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's funny, everybody talking about Zoom and GoToMeeting and all those platforms. I have a lot of experience with them, and yet not much using Google Hangouts, Google Meet. So forgive me for the awkwardness. Hey, thanks so much. I'll just take a moment of your time to say we're really thrilled to be partnering with MSBA, and Treble is a business networking platform. Right now, we're doing tremendous amount of assistance for lots of organizations like chambers of commerce and tech councils to host virtual online networking events that allow people to build relationships and not just lectures and things like that. And just a few second update, every Thursday at 3 o'clock, so today as well, we have a getting started in case you're interested in learning how to leverage Treble to build relationships, to manage the existing relationships, to work on your referral business. I suspect that's an important aspect of many attorneys, many attorneys' practices is, driving referrals and knowing who to talk to about different opportunities. So if you're interested, I'll put it in the chat. You can set up for any Thursday at 3 o'clock, and we've got a lot of resources, and we look forward to hosting virtual networking events with MSBA in the future. Thanks.
Thanks so much, David. Any other thoughts or questions from anyone? Andrea, did you have something?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Our president, Dana Williams, has connected us with a public health expert at the University of Maryland, and she's doing a presentation for us on Monday. It's not substantive law, it's not practice management or tech support type of information, but it's really valuable information as we start to look at how things might look on the other side when we're actually trying to open up for business again. And her name is Trudy Henson, and that presentation is Monday morning, May 4th, and I can post a link to it in the chat. But it's not information that we've put out before in these last couple dozen webinars. As I said, it's not legally focused, but I think it's really good public health information. So I'll post a link in the chat to that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And thanks everyone for joining us this morning. We do plan to continue these chats as the emergency continues and hopefully beyond to check in with everyone. And as always, please be safe and stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye now.